Hey everyone, CWD Music here. I'm CWD, and this is going to be a music review of the Arca album. It's self-titled. This is the third full-length commercial project of producer, evidently a singer-songwriter, Arca. Arca's been around for a little while now. He was originally from Venezuela and now is based in New York. Within the past few years, he's left his mark as a very intriguing producer, a very intriguing electronic musician for his production work for Kanye West, FK Twigs, Bjork, and most recently Kalela. Not only that, but he has made a particular impression with not just the past two albums, but also some EPs and a couple of mixtapes. To describe Arca's sound, he is pretty androgynous with his electronic music. He's also very eerie, very creepy. The past Arca album, Mutant, it was an hour long and solidified my fandom of Arca, even if at times I felt like he was still trying to find his sound. And that was my problem with Zen, his debut album, where, yeah, the album was good, but it sounded a lot like other people's work, namely One Tricks Point Never. Mutant was going in the right direction, but I feel like that the album being about an hour long did make the project kind of sort of bloated. Don't get me wrong, I love the album. I think a lot of what Arca made on that album was immaculate. I thought it was well written, well conceived, and well executed. When it comes to this really eerie, hard-hitting and uncompromising sound and IDM music, but I still felt like that there was room to improve, and it was even more obvious on Mutant when there were so many tracks on the album and it could have done without maybe 5 or 6 of them. So I was pretty much anticipating this new album since I heard about it. The album was originally supposed to be called Reverie, but I guess he renamed it. But I guess he made the album self-titled, and hearing this album now, it makes a lot of sense, since not only are we getting more eerie, uncompromising, at times hard-hitting, and particularly melancholy sort of sound here, I feel like Arca has finally solidified his own sonic style with this project, and the only component he had to add was himself. He's singing on this album now, and I do wholeheartedly believe this is going to be one of my top 10 favorite electronic albums of the year. This album is about 13 tracks in length. It's about 43 minutes long, so it's significantly shorter than what Mutant was, which is a plus in a lot of ways since we're not getting a good chunk of Arca like all throughout to where it's kinda overwhelming and a little desynthesizing at moments. And as mentioned, the one thing I do want to bring up with this album that is a big component is Arca's vocals. I don't know why Arca hasn't been singing on his projects before. I don't know if he has in the past, apart from the Entrañas mini-album slash EP slash mixtape, where that project closed off with the track Sin Rumbo, which is a song that appears on this particular album as well, where he was singing on this project. And Arca's an intriguing vocalist when it comes to sort of an eerie, sort of melancholic sound. I feel like throwing his vocals on this album leads to a whole other layer of the creepiness and the sort of, at times, emotional abrasion that comes from a regular old Arca album. It can be argued that Mutant was more so him still trying to find his sound, but it was definitely noted that Mutant was going to be a precursor to what is to come from the time to come. Mutant showed off what it is Arca was capable of overall, but with this album, this self-titled album, this is without doubt a sound I think Arca should keep going in. He needs to keep expounding upon this particular eerie sound, and he needs to sing a lot more on albums to come of his. Take Sin Rumbo for example. It sounds like a really solitary torch song of sorts, and his falsetto on the song is absolutely gorgeous in a very eerie way. Now, traditionally, I wouldn't say Arca is a good singer, whatever the hell that means, but I think his vocals fit incredibly well on this particular album, with the, once again, eerie sort of sounds. Zelda, we have a guest. We have a guest. I don't know if she's going to be a willing guest, but we have a guest. Hey, Zelda! Say hi to the people! But yeah, the beats and the overall production on this album, I believe, complements Arca's vocals incredibly well, as the sort of eeriness that Arca goes for fits his production style pretty well. And I know that he's no Freddie Mercury, he's no David Bowie, he's not trying to like be flashy or compelling in that sort of way, but within this style of music that Arca goes for, he definitely, without a doubt, can just keep going with this sort of eerie and creepy sound that he has going for him with tracks like Sin Rumbo, as well as with the track Piel, which he sings over this, where are you going? He sings over this sort of drone, eerie noise thing that kind of just is present and just continues to build in a certain way. Or the track Anoche, which has all these warped, I want to say, piano chords or some kind of weird flashy synth in a sense that sounds like a steel drum from hell. And then there's the track Reverie, which you can definitely tell should have been the title track to this album, as the album was originally supposed to be called Reverie, because it is incredibly abrasive in sort of a subtle way. It's rather hard-hitting in a sense, and Arca, once again, guides on this incredibly well. The track Desafio borders on commercial, given how catchy it is and how more so melodic it is. This is actually one of my favorite tracks on the album, if not my favorite track on the whole album. There are also instrumental moments on this project, and unfortunately, it's hit or miss for me, depending on how fleshed out each individual track is, in a sense. On one hand, you have songs like Castration and Urchin, which are wonderful. They could have fit snugly on Mutant, given how abrasive they are and given how eerie and creepy they are, but still, they fit a lot better here, given that, once again, he is still going for that atmosphere, but in a more specific and unique and at times idiosyncratic way. On the other hand, you do have tracks like Saunter, which, yeah, has a little bit of vocals in it, but it is so short that it feels like it's not fleshed out enough. And then there's the track Whip, which used to be one of my favorite tracks, given how inventive and rhythmic the whip samples were, but I feel like that Arca could have guided on this with his vocals as well if he just fleshed it out to another 2 minutes. And I do have a slight gripe with how it ends, because after Fugaces, which is a really beautiful track that builds incredibly well, it ends off with like a couple of tracks that aren't exactly like the best. The track Piel sounds like another ballad that, while yeah, not bad and still solid in its own right, just doesn't really add a whole lot to the project as a whole. And the closing track, Child, is kind of anticlimactic instrumental that Arca has going on, but still, I like it. I just wish that the album ended in a more dramatic and climactic way. But other than that, yeah, I like this album a lot. I think it's really good. I think it's a highlight for electronic music for this year, as well as music for this year. Arca had a moment to keep me interested in his music on a solo front, and he's pretty much succeeded. And on his part, it didn't take a whole lot. All he had to do was just open his mouth and sing. I actually kind of wonder what Mutant would sound like, or even Zen would sound like if he sung. But as it is now, I feel really rewarded with what Arca has presented to the listener, and I'm definitely going to be looking forward to what Arca is doing next. Arca, at his young age, is still solidifying himself as a unique force in the world of electronic music, whether that's doing co-production for names like Kanye West or Bjork, but more so specifically when it comes to his solo projects, like with this one. And with albums like this one, he's going to be a name that you're going to want to pay attention to from the time to come. This album is a plus 2.3 and a plus 3. Again, I feel like there was a couple of spots here and there that I didn't necessarily love all throughout, but for the most part I found the album really enjoyable, really breathtakingly eerie, and at times pretty gorgeous in a creepy way. So if you are looking for electronic music of this sort of nature, then definitely check this album out. But if you've given this album a listen, what'd you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What is your reasoning for that? And what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? This is CWD Music here. Zelda, say bye to the people, Zelda. Signing off.